The Democratic Party's internal civil war, something that is not really talked about too much in mainstream media. I'm Bernie Bro. Let me explain. Yes, there is a Democratic Party internal struggle going on for the heart and soul of the party. And being that I've been in and out of the Democratic Party since I've been registered to vote back in the late 1980s. It's something that's a great concern for me. Yesterday, I was listening to the Humanist Report, hosted by Michael Figueredo. His video called "Bernie Staffers needs to stop tweeting for him," and he touched upon this as something that Republicans seem to kind of tune out or are indifferent toward. They know that Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren were all duking it out amongst themselves, just as Republicans duke it about amongst themselves in most primaries, and as Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders did in 2016. But the Republican Party, the thing about it is that I think that most Democrats, whether they're on the left or they're centrist, um, kind of view the Republican Party as correctly an extremist political party. But having that said, they also realize that the Republican Party has many factions, and these factions don't particularly get along well with each other. Although they do a better job of uniting together for what their version of what they call the greater good, or what they think is the greater good. So within the Republican Party, you have the establishment, which are more commonly referred to as the neoconservatives. And some people call them movement conservatism. But they're basically the mainstream of the Republican Party, but a mainstream that has a moderate faction and an extremist faction. But mainstream in the sense that they're establishment and they're united by a hawkish foreign policy of bombing. Ask questions later. They're united with the good old fashioned tax cuts, good old fashioned, you ain't taking my guns away from me kind of thing. And they're united on things like that. They may, oh yeah, abortion for the most part. There may be a little more nuance on the question of LGBTQ equality, which probably I would say most Republicans are still kind of hostile toward gays. You might have a few that take a more libertarian approach and favor it and get in a little bit of hot water among some fellow Republicans. Some of them will do the cop out, say civil unions, and some people would rather not discuss it because it's a divisive issue. But probably for the most part, they're still with the Neanderthal anti-gay sentiment, which is a kind of a uniting attitude in the party. Um, yeah, and as I said, oh yes, immigration, good old fashioned immigration. The fear of brown people crossing the borders, and they're all united among their fear of socialism. That and of course, they think every Democrat is a socialist. They think anything to the left, anything that's to the left of Joe Manchin, which Joe Manchin is their favorite Democrat. Anything to the left of Joe Manchin is a socialist in their eyes. So that's how the Democrats will view the Republican Party. You have the establishment neoconservatives. You have the more traditional paleoconservatives. You have the libertarians. You got the fiscal hawks in the party, and some way, and oh yeah, the dreaded Christian right. So pretty much you have all these factions, and somehow they coalesce, and they're able to get their guy in there, which at this point is Donald Trump. And as I said, the Republican Party is, for my perception of them, and I think I'm pretty accurate saying it, is an extremist party. Um, from the from being from North Carolina, I would say that Jesse Helms, the late Jesse Helms, is the public face of the Republican Party. In other words, the Republican parties we know it today was basically evolving by the time Jesse Helms came along in the 1970s and created that institution that's even different from the Richard Nixon years. So this the Republican Party ain't the party of Dwight Eisenhower anymore. The Republican Party it ain't even the party of Barry Goldwater anymore. And I would say that Jesse Helms, who was a combination of the shitty politics of the Jim Crow Democrats in the South and the shitty economics of Robert Taft's hardcore capitalism, which is weird because Robert Taft was not a racist asshole like Jesse Helms was, but he combined the Jim Crow mindset of racism and the hardcore economics of Robert Taft, and voila, the modern Republican parties we know it today. Psycho gangster capitalist with dog whistle racist overtones. And that's why I won't vote Republican. But kind of I'm kind of going off too much nuance. But let me get to the meat and potatoes. What I'm going to say. The Humanist Report, he was correct when Figueredo basically said that the Republicans don't really see a difference between a Bernie Sanders and a Joe Biden. I'm paraphrasing him. Or they don't see a difference between Hillary Clinton and you know, AOC. They don't see a difference between um, Jesse Jackson and Joe Lieberman. They don't see a difference between someone like Ilhan Omar or Dianne Feinstein. To the Democrats, in their eyes, all the same. They're all the same. A bunch of socialists, communists, Marxists, terrorist lovers, and that's the mindset of the average Republican toward the Democratic Party. I remember Ben Shapiro one time when discussing democratic socialism, and he was saying, I'm paraphrasing him again, but it was something on the effect of, when people ask Bernie Sanders or Tom Perez or Hillary Clinton about democratic socialism, they can't give you an answer. Well, Bernie Sanders have given multiple responses to the point I'm sure he's probably tired of responding, but but it's not really a question to ask Tom Perez or Hillary Clinton because Tom Perez and Hillary Clinton are not socialists. They're not social democrats. If they're liberal, they're barely liberal. They're in fact, I would say that Tom Perez and Hillary Clinton are, in my eyes, rhino Republicans for gay marriage. So this is where it comes with Bernie Sanders. Because of the 2016 and 2020 primaries, there's been a real fight for the heart and soul of the party to push it away from the Bill Clinton model that we've been stuck with for the past 30 years and move it back toward the FDR model, the New Deal progressivism that existed until about the 1980s when the Democratic Party decided to start reversing its New Deal, pro New Deal course. And I'm not going to say that the Democratic Party was in great shape in the 70s. I mean, there was kind of a soft move away from it by then, because of the distrust and cynicism of the government due to the Watergate and everything. And people were a little more cynical of Washington, D.C. So, one of the big mistakes Jimmy Carter made when he was president was to engage in a series of deregulations of the economy, and some of these little measures. And I think that when he did it, he was doing it to kind of be a populist. And I guess I understand what that mindset, but I don't know. Deregulating the economy to make it so that the wealthy can become wealthier at the expense of those who are the less fortunate. It's not my ideal populism, but I think that Jimmy Carter moved away from that, thankfully. And I have always said in my half a century of living, I was it would probably be safe to assume that I despise every president that sits at the Oval Office at the moment. Well, if I was old enough and had my own political opinions during the early and mid '70s, I would have probably hated Nixon and Ford because they were in the White House, and Jimmy Carter because he was in the White House. Well, I became politically aware in the 1980s. So it started right there during my formative years politically. And yeah, I hated it when Ronald Reagan was president. And I hated it when George Herbert Walker Bush was president. Even though I voted for Bill Clinton in 1992, once he was sworn in, I thought, my goodness, Bill Clinton is a piece of shit. I despise him too. And then George W. Bush came in, and I despise him. And Barack Obama came in, and I despise him. And Donald Trump came in, and I despise him. So I'm gonna tell you, in my half a century of living, I despise every president that's actually sat in the Oval Office. But if I have to choose between Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, Bush one, Clinton, Bush two, Obama, and Trump, I would say that the best out of that whole group would have been Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter would have probably been the best, and not because he was an awesome president while he was the president. It's what he did after he left the Oval Office, building houses for poor people, traveling abroad to try to work for world peace. Jimmy Carter is a good man, and and he he to me he's to be respected. I wish we had more people like Jimmy Carter around. If we did, we would be a better nation. Um, so there's my take on that. But the point I'm trying to make is that by the 1980s, when Ronald Reagan defeated Walter Mondale, the Democratic Leadership Council came along, and they shifted the Democratic Party to a more corporate party and moved it away from its New Deal social democratic or labor roots that it had. And Bernie Sanders came along to try to reverse that course. And the corporatists in the Democratic Party loves those corporate donors and the donations that come in. And they love their lavish lifestyle and their special positions. In fact, I would say that in 2020, even though they probably would prefer Joe Biden to win over Donald Trump, they're not going to be particularly upset if Donald Trump, defeats Joe Biden because they can go and do fundraisers and keep the foot soldier partisan activists all hot and bothered, and they can continue this resistance. The dog and pony show. You know, Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi calling Donald Trump an asshole in public, but when it comes to bloated military budgets and corporate welfare, they're going to be there to vote for it. And when it comes to voting for right wing asshole judges, you better believe that they'll be there voting for it. And when it comes to neocon wars and bombing the shit out of brown people halfway across the globe, you better believe it. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to go and sing "Kumbaya" through the voting record in Congress, through legislatively, be singing "Kumbaya" with Donald Trump. So, you know, the resistance is a joke. It really is a joke. I mean, the real resistance is opposing the shit that Trump, Schumer, and Pelosi supports. And as far as I'm concerned, Pelosi, um, Schumer, McConnell, and I forgot to mention McConnell, and Donald Trump, all four of them can go to hell as far as I'm concerned. Well, what is the solution as far as this movement's concerned within the Democratic Party? And I would say that the solution is to keep on fighting the good fight, and do not, as much as I love Bernie Sanders, do not listen to him, you Bernie Sanders supporters, and you be loud, you be obnoxious, and you pretty much call bullshit when you see it, with the way that the Democratic Party um, treats the progressive wing, and we need to let them know that we're not to be taken for granted anymore. And really insulting, and how the Democratic leadership will sit there and allow the never Trumpers to come in, and it's going to shift the Democratic Party further right, and it's going to make the Republican Party shift further right. And then we leftists get voter shame when we have less and less options and less reasons to vote for a Democrat. And just it really, at the end of the day, and I support the good fight within the Democratic Party, and count me in fighting inside the Democratic Party, even though I'm outside the party. As a leftist, I have a vested interest in leftists within the Democratic Party doing well. But in the event that it can't be done, well, I'm looking forward to the day when they realize it can't be done, because I know it can't be done. Um, the whole idea of a Labor Party coming into being needs to be seriously discussed. And really, honestly, it's no matter how much even a lot of decent elected um, members of Congress and governors and state reps and mayors and elected politicians, from the Senate all the way down to dog catcher all across the country, needs to realize within the Democratic Party, if they are on the left, that the only way to make change is that commitment to building a labor party. Honestly, an independent working class labor party is what's going to be needed. A political party that Eugene Debs can be proud of. A political party that Big Bill Haywood could be proud of. A political party that Martin Luther King could be proud of. And that's what we need. We need such a party, whether that party is going to be the Democratic Party or whether that Labor Party is in the outsides. We do it through the Green Party, or we form a political party that's similar to the larger center left parties that exist in Europe, whether the kind of political parties that call themselves Labor Party or Social Democratic Party. That last option, a Labor Party or a Social Democratic Party, is what I've always been sympathetic toward, but we'll see as time goes on. Anyway, I am Bernie Bro, and that's what I got to say right now. And if you like what you heard, um, hit like, thumbs up, and tell your friends about this channel. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and let everybody know, and make this channel, you know, something that we can all be proud of. And you, the audience, helped me make this channel possible. Thank you. Have a great day.